All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the mix function here. So we had a question that wanted us to kind of go over and clear up exactly what this mix function is doing in our pulsate section from the last video in our shader. Well, I have pulsate, our pulsate variable here, underlined in blue because this is providing us a very important number. But for the time being, let's go ahead and take a look at the function itself. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide that for a moment while we talk about this. And the mix function, it's kind of like this magic blender. And what it does is it mixes two colors together, as you can kind of guess. And it's based on a special number. That special number is that pulsate variable that I mentioned. And to put it in simpler terms, we can imagine that we have two jars of paint. All right, let's say we have a red and a blue one here. One's red, the other is blue, and we also have a special knob here. And I'm just going to go ahead and spin it all the way around, point down. Now, when you turn this knob halfway, so if we say that this is 0, pointed down, and we have full 360 degrees, then pointing straight up will be halfway. And if we were to turn this knob halfway, the blender would take half of the red paint and half of our blue paint, and then mix them together to create a new color. In our example of red and blue, we would have equal parts red with equal parts blue, and we would get a nice purple. Right, so if we can imagine, we can say, okay, our red paint comes down, plops right down in the middle, and since our knob is halfway, we're going to have the same amount of blue come on down and fall in, and we get this nice purple that's right in the middle, since we have such an even balance between our two colors. Now, if we were to mix this a little more in a different way, which I guess I'll mention here in a second here. So we'll say that red is color 1, blue is color 2, and the mix function in our code is working in a similar way to what we see here. And it's taken our two colors, right? Color 1 red and color 2 blue, or whatever you have set your colors to specifically, and a special number called the blend factor, which is what our knob here is controlling when we went from 0 to 0.5 when we turned our knob up. Now in our code, the pulsate number that we get, that we calculate, is acting as that magic blend factor number. And like I mentioned here, it's determining how much of these colors are being mixed together. So when our blend factor was all 0, I just grab this real quick. So when our knob was pointed down and we had it at all 0, what that means is we want color 1 and only color 1, because we're not mixing any of the blue in at this point. And if we're to change the blend factor to 1.0, so if we were to spin it all the way around to the max amount here, then we would have color 2, and we wouldn't be pouring in any red. We wouldn't be mixing any red into it. So this is why we would have, when we want that 50-50 mix, like we're seeing here, that's when you want it in the middle, so you can have equal parts red and equal parts blue paint, we could say, coming down in. So with our number at, if I just pull this up here one moment, there we go. So if pulsate was 0.5 in this calculation, we'd be mixing equal parts of color 1 and equal parts of color 2 together to get a nice middle ground of whatever those two colors make. So if we had yellow and blue, we'd be getting a nice green right in the middle. And of course, if pulsate was 0 and we had our blue and yellow, we'd have whichever one's color 1, we'd only be getting that color. And if we had at 1.0, we'd only be getting whatever color 2 was. So the mix function takes the two colors that we pass in, our color 1 and color 2, and the blend factor, our pulsate, and creates a new color that is a blend or mixture, that's why we call it mix, of the two colors, and it is completely based off of that blend factor that we pass in. That tells it how much of each color to mix in there. So, to go over that again, in our code here, the mix function is used to blend color 1 and color 2 together based on the value of pulsate. Depending on whether pulsate is high or low, determines the mix of colors between color 1 and color 2, how much of each get mixed in. Alright, hopefully that explains the mix function clear enough for everyone. And hopefully you guys now have a clear understanding of what this specific function is doing with our colors. Alright, so let's talk about the ABS function, because we also had a question about that and what that does and how that's actually working. So the ABS function is like a magical machine that makes sure a number is always positive. So to explain that, you can imagine that you have a number line like we have here that goes from negative to positive. Numbers on the right are positive and numbers on the left are negative. So we're going with from -3 to +3 in this example. Alright, so sometimes we want to make sure that a number is always positive no matter if it's originally negative or positive. And this can be very important depending on what it is you are doing. A negative number may break a piece of code, it might ruin it, cause errors, whatever reason that you require a positive number. So what we're doing when we want to make this number positive, when we want to make sure that the number is always positive, no matter if it's originally negative or positive, this is where the ABS function comes in. And the ABS function that we use, it comes in, it takes a number as input and gives us the positive version of that number. So for example, I'm just going to go ahead and give ourselves a little block here. This nice little purple. Alright, so let's say that inside of the ABS function, our result passed in is a -3. Well, if we have this inside of the ABS function, our absolute, that's going to give us back a +3 because it has to give us a positive number, and it's going to give us the positive version of whatever is passed into it. So if we were to pass in a 2, it's just going to give us back 2 because it's already positive. It's not breaking any rules. Now in our code that we had in the blink portion, alright, so taking a look at the code that we are running when it came to our blink here. So if we look at this code, the ABS function is used to ensure that the blink value, which represents our blinking effect, right? And ultimately our blink speed that gets input in from our user or whatever we want to put in. And we use that blink speed multiplied by time, and then we get the sign of that. So with that, we're getting a wave that's going from negative to positive during this whole thing, right? So what we're doing here is we're taking that blink value and we are passing it into our ABS function, and this was always going to end up being positive. So you can kind of think of with our sine wave, right? If we go up to the positives, right, maybe we go all the way up to 5, and then we start coming down, we hit 0, and then our wave, of course, is going to continue going down, so we might get all the way down to -5, turn around, then come all the way back up, pass 0, go back to +5 again, come back down, hit 0, go down to -5, and repeat. So this is going to ensure that all those negatives in that case is going to be positive. So it's like we're going from 5 in this example case that I mentioned here, 5 going down to 0, going back up to 5, coming down to 0, back up to 5, down to 0, and you kind of get that idea. Obviously, we're not going with 5 in this case, since we're going with the alpha, so it's either 100% or the alpha's just transparent completely, right? Not there. But that's kind of the idea that we're going with here. So we're ensuring that that blink value is always going to be positive and will never be hit with a negative. And in our case, we're using ABS because alpha can't be negative, right? Once it hits 0, you can't see it anymore. There is no negative for alpha. So for us, this ensures that the alpha channel of our color is correctly modified based on that blinking effect, regardless of whether that effect is making it brighter, darker, right, on that alpha, which maybe brighter, darker is the correct words for it, but you get the idea at this point. So in simple terms, the ABS function makes sure a number is positive, and in the code for our blink, it's used to guarantee that the blinking effect is always applied correctly to the alpha channel of our color. Alright, hopefully that explains the ABS function clear enough for you guys. So hopefully you guys understand both how the ABS function and the mix function both work from last week's shader video, where it created the pulsating effect and the blinking effect. Alright, and that'll do it for this video. Take care, have yourselves a good one. Got any other questions? Leave them down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.